All right, what's up, guys? JMart is back. We're here. We're gonna talk NFL draft. Wanted to go through. That's why I brought you back. It's been a couple of months here. First of all, how's everything going? How you doing?
It's been good. It's been good. It's been busy, but obviously love talk football. Love a chance to talk about the draft. Really excited. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought what we would do. We haven't talked about it. I don't know really any of your opinions about anything, but I just wanted to go through the draft. Just getting the meat and potatoes. Go through each pick, how you see it, how you see the teams, and catch up. So let's do it. Feels like this is the first draft I can remember in a long time where there's no attention to the first pick at all. It was like Cam Ward is as underwhelming as a number one draft pick as I can remember in recent years, as far as, if last year he was probably projected to be like the third or fourth guy taken. And then this year, the other quarterback, Shador, occupied all the oxygen. So Cam Ward, what's your read on him? Did the Titans draft somebody that can put them in the playoffs this year? How do you view it?
Yeah, I mean, they had to draft Cam Ward. Like everyone knew they needed a quarterback. He was one of the only quarterback in this draft that you can justify using the first overall pick on. That being said, he's if you describe his kind of play style, it reminds you of someone drafted in the mid 2000s that isn't exactly a great first overall pick. He's bigger. He takes a lot of sacks. There is a bit of a weight issue with him. He's a larger guy and stuff, but he's really creative. There's a lot of potential in the arm's a cannon. He kind of sounds like Jamarcus Russell to me at some points, and obviously he won't be Jamarcus Russell, I don't think. I think his work ethic's really good. I think he'll continue to get better. Every stage of football he's been at, he's continued to progress at. I really like him as a draft pick, but that being said, he isn't my 1-1 as far as a prospect goes, but he's who the Titans had to take. I don't expect him to push them to the playoffs next year or anything like that, but I could see him year 3 really getting into his own shoes and stuff and really starting to make it work. The Titans also, though, just like the support system around him isn't very strong. He's going to have to learn how to do it on his own a little bit. I think it'll be a good learning year for him, and I think like the NFL will also learn a lot about Cam Ward in the first year with how he plays in just not the best situation.
Fair enough. I liked him the most when I saw the workout with him and Shador, and just like seeing what kind of personality he has. Seems like a grinder. And the Titans did lose a lot of Will Levis games. I mean, Will Levis could have been responsible for 3 or 4 games. It's a small margin of error. I would expect a lot of juice for the Titans. I will not be betting against the Titans. I like the pick a lot. I'm fascinated with the Travis Hunter situation because I'm kind of blown away that it seems like the consensus was the Jaguars gave up too much, because I'm on the other side of it. So I'm curious where you're at. You go ahead first, and then I'll give my take.
Yeah, I'm on the other side too. I mean, look, for starters, you can't evaluate how much the Jaguars gave up right now because of Travis Hunter's potential. He's a two-way guy. He's football Shohei Ohtani, which is an over-exaggeration, but he is that versatile. You don't trade out of the one generational prospect in a draft. In my opinion, the Browns, you got to pick them. You got to find a way to make it work. This draft isn't as top heavy as a lot of recent drafts. There aren't a lot of guys you can like say, oh, he's generational. He's that good. Travis Hunter is that good. And you only get him at number 2 because the Titans just really needed a quarterback. And then as soon as you luck into a chance to take the best prospect in the draft, you trade down for a defensive tackle. And I don't like it. I get they were targeting value. That was clear all draft with like the Browns idea. That's the reason they said they took Shador in the 5th round. But I don't think you trade out of that pick. I don't think there's really any world where you should even be considering it unless the other team's giving up like basically their entire future for it.
Yeah, I think the Jaguars, it's hard for people to understand because they've been, haven't had that much success to realize like they have to win 11 games this year. Like they have to win a playoff game, or they have to switch the entire direction of the team, meaning they gave Trevor Lawrence all the money. So they've switched out the coach now 3 times, for better or for worse in certain situations. But now they bring in, the Bucs guy, Liam Cohen, who did wonders with Baker. That Bucs offense was dynamic. So to me, you have to do it if you're Jacksonville because, Mason Graham or Abdul Carter does not give you a chance to win 11 or 12 games. Travis Hunter, if it works, and Trevor Lawrence is really that guy, it works. And now if it doesn't this year, you can finally say you're done with Trevor Lawrence. Where are you at with Jacksonville? If I said they were going to win 11 games this year, would that be drug test worthy statement, or are you with me?
I like the Travis Hunter pick. I think it definitely makes it more likely, but I have not liked what I've seen from Trevor Lawrence recently. You get flashes, you see why he was a generational prospect coming out of high school, but the game feels really flat at times. He doesn't feel dynamic most of the game. He can do dynamic things, but I think he plays way too, it's not even conservative because he turns it over a ton. He just feels like he doesn't really have control of the game. You watch him at quarterback and it feels like he's just playing quarterback instead of like field generaling the offense and stuff. And I don't think,
agree with you.
yeah,
That's a good point.
I don't think he's the kind of guy. I think he's a guy that could win the AFC South because the AFC South is not that good of a division. I don't think he's the kind of guy that can win a Super Bowl for Jacksonville. So it really want out of Trevor Lawrence.
I agree with what you're saying, but I think that's where the coaching can fix it, because that reminded me a lot of how Baker played, kind of free flowing, and then all of a sudden it's like, dude, you got to get the ball out one time, and we're demanding you to. It never feels like Trevor Lawrence. It felt like Doug Peterson gave him a lot of room to operate, and I wonder if the Bucs are going to micromanage the passing game. I like it a lot. Let's go to the Giants. That was obviously we'll do both of the Giants picks since they traded back in to get Jackson Dart. Actually, let's start there, and then we'll get Abdul Carter is kind of an obvious thing, right? Like he's the best, pass rusher. If everything works out, great. Whatever. He's worth a win, maybe two at the most. Let's go to Jackson Dart instead and skip up to the Giants' decision. They got Russell Wilson. What a weird team they have. Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, Jackson Dart, and the best defensive line in football, and maybe one of the top 10 receivers because Malik Neighbors is amazing. And then after that, kind of a young, exciting running back that was good last year. But what the hell are they doing? What do you think of Jackson Dart? Go ahead.
I really liked Jackson Dart as a prospect when he was being mocked as like a third-round pick kind of guy. I thought there was a lot of value there. I thought he has a great arm. He has a lot of confidence, and I think he could develop into something really special. He's not as old as like a Tyler Shock where it's like, it's not really worth taking him with the pick because he's already like 26. But I think Dart was worth taking and seeing what you had in him. That being said, I don't think he was worth taking 25 to trade back into the first round to pick him. I think he probably falls to wherever the Giants are drafting in the second, and now you're kind of just giving up unnecessary value for a guy that, I'm going to be honest, just isn't first round worthy. Like he's a fun prospect, but the decision-making is still awful. The best comparison I've seen is that he's really just Daniel Jones with a little more tools. So like that does kind of hamper the ceiling coming straight out of college. But that being said, they do have Russell Wilson. You can learn a lot from him. I think their games are really similar, but I don't really like trading back into the first for a quarterback that probably won't see the field for the next year, maybe two. So it's an interesting decision, and I like Jackson Dart. I don't like trading back into the first to take him.
You think the Giants are more likely to be in the top 5 in the draft next year or to make the playoffs?
Yeah, that's the other side of it, is that they're probably more likely to be in the top 5 of the draft, just knowing how they do.
Really?
You
don't like it?
I don't see them as a playoff team. I don't think they can turn it around that quickly. I don't really think they still have so many issues, and there's a culture problem still that I think started last year that I think will be an issue this year too. I'd be shocked if they make the playoffs, honestly.
I kind of like Russ as the fix-it guy for a year. I feel like that could be a new job for him. Just go to the worst team, kind of stabilize them for a second. Because I felt like, I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked if the Giants are way better. I don't know enough about Jackson Dart to have an opinion, but I do agree with you. Once you start crying on the field a year ago, I don't think you're quite ready to be my starting quarterback. And Florida doesn't strike me as the type of team that should have made you cry last year. But all right, here we go. Will Campbell has to be the pick for the Patriots, right? Or do you disagree? Like, because they have Drake May and they need an offensive tackle. Was he considered the best one to you as we get to the next couple of guys?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the other options, he's who you had to pick. Like there are some points in the draft where like you can take reach picks, and you'll see teams later on in the top 10 did end up doing that. If you're top 5 and there's a consensus number 1 at a position, you got to take them, because you can't go back to your fans and pitch this guy that was supposed to be in the mid first round, and then he ends up failing. You're going to be fired immediately. If you take the guy you were supposed to take with that pick, and he still ends up failing, you can say, what were we supposed to do? We didn't see this coming. That being said, I don't think Will Campbell fails. I know there was the issues with like arm sizes early on, and they do look kind of short, but I think he's a really good offensive tackle. People can overcome those kind of physical aspects. I think he's a great guy too. I think he will help that Patriots culture that was a little weird last year. I think they'll get a lot better with him, Mike Vrabel. There's been issues with Drake May. I've heard about him in the locker room. I think Will Campbell can help that as well.
Really? Some Drake May issues. All right.
He was really weird about Joe Milton for a guy that was taken second overall. He was really weird about them taking a dude super late and didn't even show up to the game Joe Milton started for last week of the season. So that was weird. Yeah.
All right, here we go. The Patriots are, I think they're everybody's consensus, like gigantic improvement because by all accounts, they had the worst, if not the second or third worst. I think the Raiders coach was his name. Pierce was the worst coach, but Mayo certainly wasn't winning Coach of the Year votes. And they just didn't have a lot of good players. So they couldn't fix it all with one pick, but it was the surefire pick, according to most experts. You said you disagreed with the Browns. I don't know if I completely disagree because I think that, Travis Hunter, as much as I love him with Jacksonville, I don't know. If I'm Cleveland, I don't hate it because I think Mason Graham's fantastic, and it does strengthen an already strength, if you will, giving Myles Garrett less attention. So, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world for him. I don't know if Travis Hunter puts him over the top. But what do you think the Browns are doing? While we're on the Browns, you can give me a thought on Mason Graham if you have it. But more interestingly, we'll use this time to do a couple minutes on their quarterback situation. Just bluntly, who's their starting quarterback for Week 1? Flacco, Pickett, or one of the rookies?
Well, I can tell you it won't be Dylan Gabriel. I don't think the way I've been comparing it with people is you see how hard Bryce Young and Kyler Murray have to work to actually get a pass out. Dylan Gabriel is not as athletic as either of them. It's going to be a lot harder for him in practice.
That Ohio State, that playoff game was pretty much a nail in the coffin for him.
Yeah, and that's the closest to an NFL defense that he saw all year, and he looked really bad. I like Shedeur. I think Shedeur rises late. I don't think they want him to start Week 1, and I honestly think it probably is Joe Flacco. It's the boring answer, but let the old man start the first couple of games unless you see something truly special from Kenny Pickett, from Dylan Gabriel, from Shedeur, which I really don't think you will see early on. Then I do think, though, that I can see the backup being Shedeur. I mean, people forgot that this guy was kind of the consensus QB2 in this draft for most of the season. Fell late. There are the character issues, but I think you see a guy with that much arrogance fall that far. I think it's a really good thing for him. And the way he's responded to it has been super healthy. It's been super good. He's kind of landed on his feet with this spot. And I really think that he can, this would almost be like failing upwards for him, which would be kind of cool to see.
Yeah, their quarterback situation is going to be hilarious to me because when you're in the summertime, Flacco will destroy all three of them because he's got the best arm and he's got the pedigree. So it's almost like they're really going to give it to him. I don't know how anybody would beat him out, right? Like, because in practice time, Flacco, who's going to do better? So, all right, well, before we get derailed there on that, now we got you on the record for your Shedeur take. Let's go to the Raiders. That was, I guess by all accounts, the Patriots was an obvious pick. This one seemed to be a consensus as well. I'm going to zag it, though. I thought Genty, look, I want to know what you do in the big-time games, and he choked, cost me money. Penn State's – first of all, the Boise State quarterback made like 4 or 5 really good plays that game, and Genty still couldn't get it going. Say what you want, but I thought the other couple running – I don't know. I just don't see it as him like so much better than the other running backs, so you can yell at me if you want. But if I'm the Raiders, I felt like I would have drafted one of the offensive tackles – or I would have drafted. I was higher on the corner that the Barron that the Broncos got. We'll get to him later, but I really liked him. I don't know. I didn't love it, but if you want to ride the Ashton Genty bandwagon, go for it.
I love him as a prospect. If people start looking past last year into the year prior, you see that he's a really good receiving option too, which should be used and should be utilized. I think he's really good in space. He does fit the mold of the kind of running back you take in the top 10, a Bijan, a Saquon, versatile, super hard to tackle, super quick. That being said, they're kind of rebuilding like the Bears did last season right now. They're taking skill position, kind of saying, fuck it to the offensive line. They're not going to win games doing that. But I mean, if you don't get Will Campbell, you could argue it's just best to take best talent on the board
Do
there.
you
I
think
don't
the
mind
Raiders? Do you think the Pete Carroll, Geno Smith, now Ashton Genty, like they did by all accounts have a terrible run game, terrible quarterback, and a terrible coach, and they still, obviously won a handful of games. They still have Max Crosby. Do you think it's enough of a jolt with the Raiders to get in the playoffs? You said the Giants no chance to get in the playoffs. Jaguars, you're very lukewarm on them. Do you think the Raiders could take a big jump?
I could see it happening. I mean, it's definitely possible with a guy like Pete Carroll, who is like definitely a floor raiser. Like he made those Seahawks teams competitive for forever. The issue was that those Seahawks teams kind of had good defenses the entire time. And the Raiders do have Max Crosby, but it's not a lot else really going on out there. I think you probably build defense or offensive line first, but at the least, what I can guarantee is the Raiders will be fun to watch with a guy like Geno that's the best under pressure quarterback in the NFL, Brock Bowers, and now Ashton Genty there too. I think they're going to be exciting. I'm not necessarily convinced they're going to be that good, but they are talented enough to beat like a Chiefs. Like I could see them pulling that game off instead of choking it like they did last year.
I'll bet the under on the Jets this year. I don't care what the number is. They take an offensive tackle. They probably couldn't have taken anybody, done anything to convince me they'll be good this year. I don't like the coach. I don't think Aaron Glenn's a winner. Last time I saw Aaron Glenn, he could not stop Washington as it just went up and down the field on a Saturday night. He had a bunch of injuries, but that wasn't good for him for getting the job after that performance. And they're going to roll with Justin Fields. I'm going to bet the under on Justin Fields' production. Thoughts on Membu, the tackle that they took, and the Jets?
I gotta assume the Jets are planning on being the Arch Manning landing spot next year because Membu feels like a reach of that pick. I think he was. He definitely wasn't who I thought was going to be the second offensive tackle off the board. And yeah, I've watched the Jets screw up offensive tackle picks for like the last 10 years now. It feels like they always kind of find a reach. They always find a guy that they really shouldn't be picking with the pick. They kept doing it. And then they also, I don't believe, drafted a quarterback when Justin Fields is really their only guy right now. I don't really know what the plan was with this draft. It was typical Jets style. I don't even think they know what they were doing.
They think they're going to whatever the word is, the Garrett Wilson, Justin Fields connection. Yeah, I don't know. I think the Jets are going to suck.
It's just, you got to convince me that you know what you're doing. Jets just really consistently feel like they have no clue what they're doing. Does feel like maybe hands on this, yeah.
Yeah, let's go to the Panthers. They take the McMillan, the receiver. Bryce was good at the end of the year. He was really good. Really helped me in that last game, beat the Falcons. Won a couple bets there to make up for my stupid Colts. But anyway, I was really impressed with him down the stretch. What's the read, though, on this receiver? Because there's been mixed thoughts.
I really like Tetairoa McMillan. I think he's a really big body that helps you with, again, that floor. I think he can get open. He's pretty fast. He's underrated fast. My issue with the pick is the Panthers had the worst defense in the NFL last year. And I do feel like wide receivers are something you can target later in the draft and get decent value out of. I do think, I don't know, it doesn't hurt to maybe think about a guy like Jahdae Barron, think about a Mykel Williams, think about like a Jalen Walker, Walter Nolan in this pick. But they won receiver. I think they do. I think they did end up actually hitting defense pretty well later in the draft, but that was their most pressing need. They didn't really address it. They're kind of just backing Bryce Young here, which I do support that. I do like giving him confidence, giving him weapons, but defense was the issue, and they didn't properly address it, I feel like, in this draft.
So I don't want to be mean because I think the Saints suck. And that offensive tackle, Banks, I mean, I know it's an emotional moment, but he was crying for like an hour, wasn't he? Like, what are we doing? I mean, didn't he know he was getting picked? Anyway, Saints, I got nothing really positive to say about them. I don't think Kellen Moore's a genius. I don't know if Derek Carr's going to be ready. And I'm glad for them that they got, kid that seems like a nice kid, but like, whatever. I don't know. I'm very low on the Saints. I was low on them last year, and I'm low again on them.
Yeah, it was a stupid draft. If you're going to draft a guy to develop behind your current quarterback, make sure he's not 26. That's probably what I'll say. especially when you can grab a guy like Kyle McCord way later that plays just like Derek Carr, try and develop him there. Don't draft a 26-year-old quarterback in the second. I don't like it. I don't think he was the third best quarterback in this draft. And yeah, Kelvin Banks, only games of him I really watched were the Georgia ones where he was not good at
I was
all.
gonna say every offensive lineman, if they only were allowed to show the tape against the 2 Georgia games, would have all had to transfer to Marshall or something because Georgia just beat the crap out of them. Yeah.
But yeah, this was just like it was a mid-draft. Saints didn't really do much. They're in such a bad position right now for a very long time that it will take a minute for them to figure out what they're trying to do.
Are you going to defend your Bears here because they shocked everybody by going with Loveland over Tyler Warren? How do you feel about it? How do you feel about the Bears seemingly doing everything they possibly can to give Caleb Williams the opportunity to succeed? They've done a lot, so go ahead. You're the Bears expert.
Yeah, I mean this Bears team should be good. Like I loved Luther Burden in the second round a ton. I thought that was an incredible pick. This one I didn't like at first. I did see analysis later on that there are concerns about Tyler Warren, primarily as a blocker. Allegedly, he's not that good. Apparently, he doesn't really bounce off the page with anything. His catchability isn't that good. His release isn't that good. His sprint speed isn't that good. Speed with the ball isn't that good. All these metrics don't love Tyler Warren. That being said, I did watch him play, and he is really good. So way I see this pick is Ben Johnson was able to snipe Sam Laporta pretty effectively later on in the draft and turn him into a really good prospect or a really good player. I'm going to trust him. Colston Loveland is still an incredible tight end prospect.
Yeah,
definitely much more traditional, like blocking, runs routes pretty effectively, not as dynamic as Tyler Warren. And I don't think the Bears needed necessarily a dynamic tight end with Colt Kmet still being in the picture. I think he fits with what Ben Johnson's going to want to do with the offense. I don't.
Right, you guys are going to run. It's a lot of 2 tight ends and 2 receivers is what the Lions did. And
I seeing Mykel Williams picked 1 pick after does kind of hurt it for me. I think Mykel's probably a better pick there. But if you were going to go tight end, I kind of trust Ben Johnson right now. He was incredible in Detroit. But if Tyler Warren ends up being better, again, it's like I was saying earlier, you don't really want to be the guy that makes the reach when there is an obvious pick there and be wrong on it. But I'll trust him right now.
Mykel Williams, right?
Yeah.
Love what the 49ers did because they basically went and rebuilt the defense. And I thought that was smart. I thought the silly thing to do would be like, all right, we have to win the Super Bowl this year. Let's get Brock a bunch of weapons. The reality is let's get back to we have about, a 4 to 5 year window here with Brock in his prime. We're probably not a championship team this year. So let's at least get some pieces. Talk to me about this kid from Georgia. Is he the best? Was he the best defender? Malachi Starks is best defender. We'll get to him later. But talk to me about Williams.
Yeah, Mykel is he's 6'5", 265. I think he's huge. He's absolutely massive. He was being mocked early on in the college season as a potential first overall pick for a little bit there too, just because of the size. I'll say as from a production standpoint, Jalen Walker definitely did a lot more for Georgia in terms of sacks and pressures and hits and all that. But Mykel projects a lot better. It's very similar to when Trayvon Walker went first overall. His numbers in college weren't as good as some of the other Georgia guys that were taken in that draft, but he's so big, he's so versatile. He is the better prospect from that perspective. And yeah, I love that for the 49ers. I think him on the other side with Nick Bosa, one of them is going to do really well, most likely Bosa. I think it's a really good pick. It's really smart. If you're going to lose a lot of talent, you have to make sure your defense is still good enough to compete. And yeah, I think they did a really good job of addressing that, like you said.
How much better is Abdul Carter than him, you think?
I think Abdul Carter is a lot closer than people think to Mykel Williams and Jalen Walker. I think that I like Jalen Walker more. I'll talk about that later, but I like Jalen Walker more. I think those 3 are really close. I think there is with Georgia this assumption that they will be good, but this inability to understand just how good they will be. And I think that Mykel projects probably to a similar level that Abdul Carter does physically and with what he's shown at Georgia.
There you go. How about Booker, the guard from Alabama? seems like if you take a guard from Alabama 12th, he must be amazing. Is he amazing? And where are you at with the Cowboys after they had the year from hell? They replaced Zach Martin here by getting this kid Booker.
I'm honestly shocked they picked him. It was the smart decision. They filled the hole that most needed to be filled, and they went with a smart pick. They didn't reach for a skill position player. They went with I like Tyler Booker. I think he's really good. I think I trust that pick. It feels very much like a pick that their new head coach would make, Schottenheimer. It feels like something that he would do. Yeah, it's smart, and it feels like for the first time in a while that we're saying that a Cowboys offensive draft pick was smart and not just like obvious or a reach. I'm really happy with it. Yeah.
There you go. And then Kenneth Grant, he went a little earlier than expected. I'm give the credit where it's due. The Dolphins finally decided to not draft somebody who just was the fastest person ever. They usually just draft some. They never really have a big guy in the middle. It feels like this guy was ginormous. But by all accounts, his work ethic needs a little bit of he needs a little encouragement. It maybe is a nice way to say it. So I think the mock that I remember zeroing in with him is that if he ends up with ends up with Harbaugh, that would, maybe get the most out of him. But last year, team sucked, took a couple plays off. But how do you feel about Kenneth Grant? And bigger picture, where you're at with the Dolphins? Because I feel like that. Anyway, go ahead with the Dolphins. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think Miami's a good spot for Kenneth Grant. If you need a guy that's going to get on your ass about not trying, Mike McDaniels isn't that. But if they can find something out of him, like Jalen Carter was another guy that people said needed a little bit of a push to get him to where he needed to be, that there were also work ethic issues. I didn't really believe that, and he's ended up flourishing completely fine with a head coach that at the time people said probably might not have been able to do it. Who knows? Really, it's at this point, at the end of the day, we are talking about a grown-ass man. If he was who was drafted higher than he was expected to, it's on his shoulders at this point. I think physically he's good enough to be taken here. And I do always like the idea of drafting those guys with alleged work ethic concerns in the mid first round, because you typically are getting a better prospect than you should be at that pick. So I like it, maybe not for Miami, and looking forward for them. I think they probably would have been well served drafting a quarterback a little higher than the 7th round, with how Tua's been hurt and with how they've had an issue with having a good backup behind Tua for a really long time. I don't think they're going to be super competitive next year. I think it's kind of falling apart a little bit, but they're still a super dynamic offense. They did address defense early here. It is possible. We do have to remember that when Tua is playing, they are still a really, really good team. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Dolphins under this year. I just think they need a new coach and quarterback, and I think that's going to happen for them next year. The Colts get Tyler Warren. I'm probably not going to have anything positive to say about the Colts ever again. They cost me so much money, and I literally got everything wrong about them, like thinking that Steichen was the reason that the Eagles are good. Now Sirianni looks like the freaking reason. And then Anthony Richardson, I would love to know exactly what my blood pressure was when he would drop back to throw the ball when I was betting on the games, because I don't know if it ever got higher. He's awful. So, yes, I'm glad for them they got Tyler Warren, but their play should just be to hand the ball to him. Nobody can convince me the Colts are going to be good with Anthony Richardson. They got Daniel Jones. We talked about Tyler Warren a second ago. You have anything to add here, or can we move on? Because anything I talk about the Colts just makes me nauseous.
Colts have a lot of problems right now. I don't think Tyler Warren really addresses any of them. They were one of those teams when it got to the 3rd and 4th round, I was like, why not take Shedeur? Because your quarterback room is so horrible right now. Anthony Richardson is almost the opposite prospect to a Shedeur Sanders, where he is like either basically the best player in the NFL that week, or he is like a high school player. Shedeur, I think, has a much higher floor than that. Thought it might have worked well. They ended up kind of doing their own thing. Again, this doesn't address any pressing issues for them, but the idea is you get a guy that plays a little like Brock Bowers. Hopefully you get another Brock Bowers with him. It's possible. Definitely doesn't make him a contender or anything like that.
All right, good. So let's move on. Your Falcons, there you go. You guys finally do it. I listen to talk radio down here, and they always yell about how how can our college team be so good? And the Falcons never draft any Georgia players. Well, there you go. They get your guy. So you like him. I was wrong. I thought he was going to be drafted. That was one of the prop bets I had because he was a coach's son and had the best interviews. So I figured that plus, so he was wasn't he the captain on the team? Like he's a great kid.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
why do you think he slipped? Why don't we do this instead of talking about how great Jalen Walker is? What would be the negative then? Why do you think he slipped? Why don't you play devil's advocate here and explain?
I really think it just comes down to the fact that he's 6'2". I think all it really is that he isn't as big as some of the other prospects, and that in the early first round, you're still drafting a lot on potential and like how you can project this guy to be. And Jalen Walker, because of his height, they projected to not be as good as, again, like Michael Williams is 6'5". I think Abdul Carter is 6'4", I think. So like they're just taller and a little bigger, but Jalen Walker is, like, from watching college football last year, outside of Abdul Carter, the most natural pass rusher ever. He just gets to the quarterback, it seems, fairly easily. Like, and it always felt like he was better at doing it in the important games, which is something you do like to see.
Right, because I would say, like, when you're a big fan of the team, that makes it like, when do you feel more comfortable, right? And in the big moments, what do you remember? So you're saying that, if you had to pick between him and Mikel and Abdul Carter, it's way closer than the way most experts are looking at it.
Yeah, I think it is a lot closer. I think Abdul Carter, because the big thing with Abdul Carter that kept having people enamored was the frame. He's not that big. They look at a guy that is so good at pass rushing while being still pretty skinny, honestly. I mean, he's not skinny, but he's not as big as some of these other guys, especially not Jalen Walker. And they say, oh, he puts on some weight, he's going to be a freak. I mean, you're looking at Jalen Walker. He's already a freak. He's already incredible. I think it's a great pick for the Falcons. They had the worst pass rushing defense in the NFL at last year, I think. So they address that immediately, and then they go on, trade back up into the first at 26, and draft another edge in James Pierce Jr. That is another guy that was supposed to be a really high pick coming in, fell down. Falcons jumped up at 26, got another guy that I think should be incredible. And yeah, the Falcons heard the fans, heard everyone say they needed a pass rush. When it got two pass rush guys, you can't be mad at this draft from them at all.
Where do you think Kirk Cousins ends up?
Hopefully not in Atlanta. I don't know who wants him. Maybe Pittsburgh at this point, because it is getting, there aren't as many options. Minnesota's a team that does probably need a veteran, but I don't think they go back to him. And yeah, I think
surprised that the Falcons no one, I guess, because the Falcons would have traded him for a 7th round pick, right?
Yeah, they would have. And I think that you saw how active the Falcons were making trades this draft. I think they were really, really trying to get him off during the draft. Just wasn't able to get it to happen. Might just have to eat the contract for another year. But yeah.
I love it. Yeah. All right. Let's move to the Cardinals. I love what the Cardinals did. They doubled down on, the investment they made in their head coach as a defensive-minded coach. They're rolling with a running game, right? They want Kyler Murray to be able to move the chains. They got the dynamic receiver last year in Marvin Harrison, and they get Will Johnson in the 2nd round. We'll get to him in a second. But the 1st round pick, the big guy, Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle from Ole Miss. Talk to me about him. How does he compare to Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant? Where did you rank him?
I liked Walter Nolan. He was a guy. Yeah, I liked it. I liked the pick. Obviously, he was never really being a Mason Graham level prospect to me, but he's really good value at pick 16. I do like what the Cardinals did, almost entirely ignoring the whole draft cycle and the rises and falls of players during that cycle. Will Johnson is a guy that coming into the NFL draft was supposed to be like a top 15 pick, falls out of the 1st round. They were able to snag him. Walter Nolan felt like a guy that was floating around top 10. They snag him as 16. Just good value, and yeah, it's a smart pick. Like I think that having a stalwart defense with the kind of offense they're trying to run, perfect combination for what Arizona's going to try and pull off. And that division should be really open this year, so I am excited to see what they're able to do out there.
Any chance Shamar Stewart, the Bengals edge guy, sucks? I don't know much about him. I'm hearing some mixed things here, but I'm hoping they didn't get a really good guy. What's the read on him?
Again, I don't like drafting based off athleticism mid first round. I feel like at that point, just target production. They drafted it off of athleticism. Uh, and the issue is that's not what the Bengals need right now. They don't need a project piece. They need a guy that can actually play defense tomorrow. They
I
didn't
thought
really.
they should. Yeah, I was happy they didn't draft who the Ravens got. I was like, they needed to upgrade their secondary. I thought so.
Yeah, Jahdae Barron's still on the board here too. So they passed on two really good secondary guys for a developmental edge. It might end up working out. I just don't think it's the right move for what they needed at all.
What about the Seahawks? Some say they reached there for the guard from North Dakota, Gary Zabel. Or Gray Zabel, excuse me. What's the read on him?
So I had to ask my friend who's a Seahawks fan about this pick because I don't. I know Gray's Zabel was supposed to be, I think, the first FCS guy off the board. I knew nothing about him though. My Seahawks friend is happy. He likes the pick. They needed offensive line. They got offensive line.
What about then? Let's go to Milroe then, because I think that's fascinating. They got Darnold on a 3-year deal. By all accounts, they can get out of it after a year. If they really wanted to. Any chance that Milroe is so dynamic that he can push Darnold for the job, or is he more a couple years away?
He's a good couple years away for me. The running game is there. He's a good runner, but that being said, he still struggles with fumbling, and that just kind of describes his entire game. It's like you watch him pass, the arm talent's there. He makes some good reads sometimes, but he makes really bad ones a lot too. It's going to take a while with Jalen Milroe. I think if he figures it out, he is like legitimately Lamar Jackson level potential because of how athletic, how big, and how good he has been at times. He is just nowhere near as consistent as Lamar, and he doesn't feel like he possesses the same confidence Lamar had coming out of college. It'll be a minute for him. I think what they're hoping is realistically they could get Sam Darnold to be good for all 3 of those years, and then they could plug Jalen Milroe in and see what they have.
Fair enough. One of my favorite picks was Ibuka for the Bucks. I was worried he was going to go to a contender in the AFC. I would have taken that. That's why, if I'm the Panthers, I do think that was a reach because this kid is always open. I know part of it is because they got Jeremiah on the other side. I get it. But what's the read here? Because the Bucks seem like, they wanted to strengthen a strength, just like the Browns did by getting Mason Graham. The Bucks look at their passing game and they're like, man, we have a top 5 passing game. Mike Evans has 1 to 3 more years, depending on health. McMillan was a great pick for them last year. So now they go with Ibuka. They could have drafted more of a need, if you will, but I like it a lot. What about you?
Yeah, they just get to benefit from all these other teams having other holes to fill. And clean up with he's one of the best prospects from a pure prospect standpoint in this draft. And he's been incredible in college as long as he's been in college. I remember him being really good as a freshman. Yeah, they get great talent there. He was, for me, really the standout in a lot of those games for Ohio State. It's like, you saw Jeremiah Smith making the big play. It was almost always set up by Ibuka clearing out of space and something like that, and somehow still being open, which is the crazy part. It's a great pick. I think he'll play really well. And the Bucks are now just even better on offense.
I like the Broncos a lot. I'm going to be betting you over for the Broncos. Probably take a flyer on them to win the division because Barron, to me, is the best corner, really good. That's why I had him under 17.5 because I felt like if he was there, the Bengals would take him with Lamar and, now Metcalf with the Steelers. It just felt like that would have been a good pick for them. I like him a lot. And I like the Broncos a lot. Where are you at with Denver?
It's a great pick. Again, another one of those guys that just kind of fell. Production was there in college. I remember him. He was really good, really strong, and it was the obvious pick for them. Really, it was the obvious pick. Pretty much right after that Walter Nolan selection, it's like, dude, why is Jahdae Barron not gone yet? And
I read that. Yeah, I read that there was a report that he was rated just as high as Derek Stingley was coming out. So by all accounts, it checked out to me. interesting he went that far. I think the Broncos, you say obvious. I think some people thought they might have taken the running back. They end up getting the running back in the second round. I guess that's who they wanted because they could have taken Hampton, but they decided to opt for the other kid. Anyway, let's go with the Squealers here. They got Harmon. So what's that now? The fourth defensive tackle. Is that about right? Or where are you at with Derek Harmon?
They don't have a quarterback. Like they don't have a quarterback. I mean, I get the idea.
Right?
Huh?
I mean, Aaron Rodgers will be the quarterback, I'm assuming.
It's looking like it will be, but then you have Cameron Hayward coming out saying that he doesn't really want, like, if Rodgers doesn't want to come to Pittsburgh, then don't come. It's a weird situation. I really support the idea of draft the replacement for a guy while the guy's still on the team. I think Cameron Hayward will teach him a lot, and I think this will be a good pick. And that's the issue with the Steelers every year is that when they do target defense, they hit and the player works out and it goes great. The issue is they never target offense, and they don't really end up doing a lot when they do target offense. Najee Harris has not been worth the pick they gave for him, especially at the running back position. Pickens is a very confusing guy to rate because I think he is worth where they got him, but he's one of those guys that if he's not making big catches, he's literally doing nothing pretty much. I think they need offense. They've needed offense for forever, and they won't pick offense. It's not who they are. They're a boring team to watch. They will continue to be boring next year. It's a boring pick. It's probably a smart pick. And yeah, I just want to see this team, take a fucking risk. Like it's very on brand for the Steelers to just sit here, draft a defensive tackle to replace their already still really good old defensive tackle. Yeah.
There you go. The Steelers will be more interesting to talk about once Rodgers makes a final decision, but I would say it's a 90% chance he ends up there. Hampton's the next running back off the board. We just talked about the Broncos better be careful because they could have had him. Now he goes to the Chargers. Everyone loves this pick. Everyone loves this kid. I'm not going to be an RJ Hampton expert here, but go ahead. Or excuse me, not RJ Hampton. That's the kid that was in the college basketball. Amari from North Carolina. Where are we at with him in relation to Genty, and how do you think he fits with the Chargers?
He was the clear-cut number 2 the entire draft cycle with running backs. He always felt like it went after Genty went, it was going to be Hampton. Makes sense. I didn't realize the Chargers didn't have J.K. Dobbins next year. So this pick then makes sense. You go get a guy who's a 20-carry guy at night for UNC in college. I really like the fit. Harbaugh's going to want to run the ball. He's the kind of guy that is capable of running the ball. Also sneaky good in the pass game. I think he's a perfect Jim Harbaugh running back. I think it works really well, and I really like the pick. They seem to be kind of complete everywhere outside of running back. It's kind of what they needed outside of wide receiver, and I think they do end up addressing a wide receiver like later on in the draft, which works out.
There you go. Packers, which, by the way, what an environment. That's so cool. Like that there's a million people there watching it. And Matthew Golden, he lived up to it. He was pretty hyped up. He's the receiver from Texas. Packers draft receiver. They never draft receiver. Do you think this was the right pick for him? Again, they don't. What do they have? Like 4 number 2 receivers, number 2/number 3 receivers. Is he? They need him to be a number 1. They didn't draft him to be another number 2 or 3. Is he a number 1 receiver?
He's not a guaranteed number 1. Watching that Texas offense, it was definitely like wide receiver 1 for the night. Like they did switch it up a lot. Some days it was Bond, some days it was Golden, some days it was like Wendell Moore and stuff too getting involved. So like I think it's a good pick. I like Golden a lot. I think he's really talented. He killed George in the second game. And yeah, the Packers needed a receiver, but you hope he's good enough. And the real question for Green Bay next year really isn't wide receiver. It's can Jordan Love put it together for an entire season?
Right. So they did the same. Yeah, I was going to say, I like the idea, like the same thing with the Jaguars. Like, hey, are we right about this? We're going to find out instead of giving you an excuse. Same thing with the Bears. Ravens did it for Lamar a couple years. You do everything you can to be like, hey, this is my investment. Let's roll with it. So, we'll find out. The Packers are going to be it's going to be really hard for anybody to pick the Packers to win the NFC because a lot of people did that last year and they came up short. I think they're going to be a wait-and-see team. It would be hard to imagine that they're not competitive. But yeah, are they good enough to take a step above last year? We'll find out. Speaking of the Packers going into that division, I love what the Vikings did. Let's not be cute. Let's just get a big guy up front. I thought the Ravens, if Starks wasn't there, I think this was my next guy that I wanted, the pure guard. Even though Josh Simmons was a better prospect from Ohio State, this Donovan Jackson guy checks off all the boxes. So I like him a lot from the Vikings. Anything to add on that one?
It's a floor raising offensive lineman, which for a team that was as competitive as the Vikings were last year is a great pick. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with it. I think the Vikings are undervalued this year. I think JJ is going to be great, and I just think it was that losing that Lions game was heartbreaking, and just kind of took the air out of their sails in that playoff game. We already did Jackson Dart, and we did a little bit on James Pierce and the Falcons. So good. Let's get to Malachi Starks, because there's nothing you could tell me like you're the perfect person. Like, you grew up 30 minutes from here. Literally looked like he thought that there was a football game starting in 15 minutes after he got drafted. Like, out of all the guys, he does fit the bill as the Raven, where it's like, dude, it's April. Like, take a minute here. He's so pumped up. Anything not to love about Malachi? Like, give me a negative. Give me something where, because I know he was better. I guess the biggest negative, right, is he was better his junior year than his senior year. Like, if he came out. So go ahead. Malachi.
Yeah, that's the concern with him, is that he took a step back last year, took on more a bigger presence in the defense, and it didn't really end up working out. My main concern with Malachi is he is either he's one of those man coverage defensive backs where he is either really, really good ball hawk, getting torched, Trayvon Diggs style when he's manned up. The good news is I don't really see the Ravens using him as anything but a safety, where he is incredible, and when he doesn't have to step into coverage, phenomenal still. And I think him and Kyle Hamilton next to each other is a work of art.
Yeah, let me interject on that point, because the secondary for Georgia was relatively weak last year.
Yes,
correct?
Yeah, it was really weak. It led to him having to step up and play corner, because we had too many safeties, not enough corners. He ends up picking that slack up. We had other safeties drop down and cover. Malachi is a pure safety, incredible. When you have to put him in man coverage consistently, he does get exposed a little bit, because he's not very just naturally good at just manning up on good receivers.
Was he a big factor on the championship teams as well?
I think his freshman year would have been the second one. So I think he was incredible and dynamic in those as this young freshman no one really knew about. Wasn't a leader necessarily, but was just a guy that played, and there was no issue. He was part of that second team was definitely a much more complete one. He was part of the reason that defense worked. I love Malachi Starks. I'll always defend him. I honestly, in all seriousness, I think Malachi probably was a top 15 prospect here, and it's really good value. You get him at 27. I think the Ravens are like the perfect place for him to end up.
Any off the field interesting things about him?
He does nothing off the field, man. He might already be, I think he's already married. Dude's a great guy. I've talked to so many people from Jefferson about him. Literally not a single person has anything bad to say about him. Even kids that went to Jefferson were like, he talked to everyone. He was nice to everyone. Pretty much the perfect person from what I've heard.
That's what Kirby Smart was saying. So awesome stuff. Good. Made me feel even better. Assuming we get rid of our kicker, but we'll find out if the Ravens. I
did draft a kicker. I did see that. Yeah.
But I said it yesterday. You tell me if I'm missing something. Unless someone is forcing the Ravens, I just don't see in Kansas City. They're like, yeah, let's go with Tyler Loop from Arizona to kick this field goal, unless we have to. People have short memories. People get upset and angry about things, and then people forget. And something tells me that he'll get suspended for a couple of games. Just give me your thoughts on it, and then he'll be actually the kicker for the Ravens is Justin Tucker, not Tyler Loop. You can tell me if I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But
no, he'll be kicking. I don't even think he'll get suspended, honestly. I think people have entirely forgotten about it, and what's just going to happen is they're going to run him out there week one. They're going to be like, oh, shit, Justin Tucker's kicking right now, and no one will have a single thing to say. It's not how it should work, but that is how it works. So, yeah, he'll be good, which he doesn't, yeah.
Yeah, that's anyway, we'll do we're rolling with Malachi Starks. Let's go to Tyleik Williams. Is that how you pronounce his name? Another defensive tackle, nonstop defensive tackles. Detroit needed it. Seems like an obvious pick, kind of in the line with the Vikings getting the guard. Lions needed a big guy up front. Any strong reaction to this?
No, it's just a smart pick. Yeah, I think there was an issue last year. They got a little hurt, and it beat them up. Tyleik Williams is really good. It's always safe to draft a defensive tackle from the best defense in college football last year. Tyleik Williams was on that defense. He was a big part of them being the best defense. Yeah, great pick.
Commanders made moves in the offseason that suggest they think they can win the championship this year. And you can't blame them for thinking that way. They were in the NFC Championship last year. They get Debo. They do a couple of other things. Now they address the offensive line here. What's the kid? Connerly from Oregon. Less about him and more about Washington. I'm curious where you think Washington lands, because I almost want to make – it just feels like they overachieved last year in a really poor NFC, and I'm not as high on them. I was really high on them last year. But what do you think about Washington?
It's a wait-and-see game for me with Jaden Daniels, because I've watched enough baseball to understand that once the league gets a good read for a player, that's when their career really starts. Like, the rookie season almost never really can count at points, because the quarterback still has to bounce back in the second year and prove he can react to the adjustments people threw at him. I trust Jaden Daniels to do that. I think they've given him good weapons. I think that the Commanders can be a wild card team again. I don't expect them to be as good as a lot of other people do. I don't see them as a real contender. I do think they overperformed in the playoffs. And I think that you play that Lions-Commanders game 10 times. I think the Commanders lose it 7 times. And I think this is the right pick, go offensive tackle, but I don't see the Commanders as I don't even see them as really top 3 in the NFC.
There you go. This kid, Maxwell Hairston, I know you're going to have an opinion because he went to Kentucky, but what a bolt of energy. That was probably my favorite. You saw his interview on the stage on ESPN.
Wasn't he also the guy that was just hyping up every other guy that got drafted? He was in the green room just celebrating with them. Yeah, this guy seems great.
When you figure out life at a really young age, which is to be happier for other people, just be in the moment. It's a thing that a lot of people really struggle with. To watch the way he was just very self-aware. I'm just here to get the ball back for Josh Allen. How's he rate as a player though? When Georgia was back to throw, he's oh no, there's Maxwell Hairston, or not exactly. What's your thoughts on him?
I do think that you probably should take Will Johnson there. If you want a corner at that point, I don't think Maxwell Hairston's the guy. That being said, he's not going to rock the boat. He's a guy that's going to come in and just be a good person to have on that team. Bill's secondary was honestly impressive last season. You saw DeMar Hamlin take a big step forward and actually be a really, really valuable player on that secondary. I think Maxwell Johnson.
The nickel, Teron Johnson's really good.
Yeah.
But they are they had what's his face? Tre'Davious White. That was the last time they drafted a corner. That worked out for him. So we'll see.
Yeah, definitely we'll see with that pick. Yeah.
And kind of fascinating that the Chiefs and the Eagles trade at the very end. I'm assuming the Eagles just wanted to make sure that no one else came up. But is this not the perfect pick? They got a middle linebacker from Alabama that had 1 million tackles. Football has changed a little bit, but we still need a middle linebacker that gets 1 million tackles from Alabama. That seems like a pretty good pick. Talk to me about Campbell that ends up going to Philadelphia.
I'm not going to disagree with an Eagles defensive pick until they miss one, and it feels like they haven't missed in 5 years.
Yeah.
Jiad Campbell is phenomenal. So,
what's the reason that nobody took him though? You just don't need a middle line. He's not dynamic. What do you?
So this is I look at linebacker a lot of the time, especially middle, gets drafted like running back, where they'll ignore the guys with good production in college, but for guys that project a lot.
Right. Yeah.
We saw Nakobe Dean fall super far out of Georgia, just end up starting for the Eagles for most of the season last year. It's one of those positions where if you just say, fuck it, this guy was really good in college and played at a really good school, he'll probably be good in the NFL. It works out most of the time. That's what the Eagles have been doing for the past 3 years, not missing picks. Just pick production. They pick production here. It's a great pick. It's annoying because I look at this pick and then the Chiefs picks, and I'm like, I mean, it's better than most of what other teams did from like
Right, the
6
Chiefs.
down.
I feel like the Chiefs are going to look back on this Patrick Mahomes era, and it's going to be like, yeah, if we have a good offensive line, we probably win the Super Bowl. If we don't have a good offensive line, what do you want him to do? And so it's like, all right, I got an idea. Let's trade for an offensive tackle or sign an offensive tackle in the offseason like they did, albeit the Niners' backup offensive tackle is projected to be pretty good. And then they get this kid, Simmons, who checks every box. I know he was injured. That's why he went down. But he without the injury, he was rivaling as one of the top picks in the draft. So I think it's good stuff for the Chiefs.
That he falls that far. Other teams, like again, I look at the Commanders pick. They probably should be looking at Josh Simmons. I could scroll up the entire way. I like Donovan Jackson, but you probably should be looking at Josh Simmons there. He shouldn't be 32nd in this draft. It sucks to see, but the Chiefs and Eagles both killed it. I'm not really shocked by this. Yeah, they're good teams, and they continue to show why they are good teams. The draft matters, and they both, killed it in this draft.
It was good catching up. Good talking football. Any hot takes for me here on the NBA playoffs? I yelled at Luka yesterday for not getting any rebounds and being a cone on defense. Although his passes no one else in the world could ever make. So he drives me insane. But it looks like that series not going to go my way. I win the bet with the Rockets yesterday. I know I asked you a question. Now I'm talking, but I'll finish my thought. I win the bet with the Rockets, but it doesn't look like they're going to win the series. What's jumping out at you?
Well, the first thing I'll say, I like the Thunder a lot. I think the Thunder are really good. I've liked how they've looked a lot better than the Nuggets or the Clippers, and I think that's a really good challenge for them. My other thing is everyone wrote the Timberwolves off way too quickly. They rode the Lakers way too hard. They saw the top-end talent and forgot they were running up against a team that made their bread and butter last year off of just being unimaginably deep in the playoffs, having 10 guys on the roster that can come in and be valuable. Timberwolves have looked great. I'm obviously not counting LeBron James out in a 3-1 series ever, but it does feel like they win that. And then, the other thing that would be super interesting is who really stands out in the East, because I haven't really had a team I've looked at outside of the Cavaliers that really stand out. And even with the Cavs, there's still concerns from past postseasons what they are. I want a team to stand out and take it, and no one really has yet.
Yeah, before you go, I think sometimes when you don't know all the details to things, it makes it hard to be like, obviously, who's right and who's wrong. But the fact that the same night that Jimmy Butler saves the Warriors and has an amazing second half, and the Heat lose by 90, they lost by 55 points at home to end their season, and then they go home, and if you turn on the television, Jimmy freaking Butler is winning the game for the Warriors. Does that make you think that he was just right this whole time and maybe Riley's a jackass? Because it seemed like the karma of last night was very pro Jimmy Butler in that.
Oh, yeah. I love that. Because they're getting what they ask for. Jimmy is a pain in the ass in the regular season, then shows up in the postseason and is really valuable. Just put up with it. Just deal with it, because he got you to a final you had no business being in and had it fairly competitive for y'all as well. Put up with him. It'll be annoying, but it's worth it always with Jimmy Butler.
They got him to 2 finals. Don't forget they lost to the Lakers on the bubble and lost to the Nuggets. So
what I'm saying is the Nuggets one, they were the 8 seed. They shouldn't have been there. He basically got him there. That other year, I mean, it was basically his team too and stuff like that. Team, but
if you go back to that bubble, if Dragic doesn't get hurt there, I don't know if the Lakers. Dragic was really good, but all right, I'll let you run. It's been it was great catching up. Well, obviously, we'll chat a little bit more maybe over the summer. Hope school ends well for you, and then we'll see you during football season. We'll work something out, and hope everybody has a great day. Orioles won yesterday. Let's see if that can continue. Braves, you guys figured it out quicker than we have. So we'll get there. But take care, man. Thanks for doing this. And
yeah.
I'll catch up with you soon. See ya.
Yeah, sounds good. See you, man. Oh shit.